Hi, beautiful souls. I'm Elizabeth, and welcome to Untangling the Heart. This time is for you. So grab your cup of coffee or tea or whatever brings you a sense of comfort. Sit back, relax, and settle in. As you listen today, just notice what resonates for you, what you connect with, and how you feel. There may be something here meant just for you. And it's always so good to have you here. So today's episode is about a question almost every client has asked me. Here's the question: why does this keep happening to me? Have you ever caught yourself asking that? I know that I have in the past. So, we experience different people, different jobs, different relationships, but somehow we keep getting those same feelings or the same disappointments. Perhaps, our employer just doesn't measure up to what we need, or our personal relationship or friendships maybe just keep letting us down. And we keep having the same emotional reactions. Have you ever wondered, why do I keep ending up here? So that's what we're going to explore today. Why emotional patterns repeat. I know you've all seen a hamster wheel, right? It feels like we're constantly on that wheel and it's never ending and we don't know what to do to shift it. So let's share it today. Why awareness alone does not stop these emotional patterns to repeat. Awareness is great. It's the first step, but it won't stop them. And why our true emotional release creates the space for lasting change. So let's get into it. Patterns aren't random. Patterns are patterns, right? You see that in beautiful flowers that grow and there's a consistent pattern in their petals. You see that out in nature. And patterns are there for a reason. I believe they're there to get our attention, right? So many people believe that they have a people problem or a relationship problem or a stress problem. The number one answer I get all the time is, what is your biggest pain point? And it's usually anxiety or stress. That's really not the pain point, but it's how we're feeling that in the body. It's the hardest to deal with. It's the hardest to know what to do with. Often we have an emotional pattern, not a people problem. So let's think about this for a moment. What are some examples? You have worked really hard at for your employer and your business, and people just kind of overlook you. Well, you could be trapping an emotion, which is a frequency. You could be trapping an emotion that's called being taken for granted. And perhaps earlier in your life, you had an experience where you felt taken for granted. And so now, when you don't get the attention that you deserve, you feel overlooked. You see how that works? Or perhaps you never felt like you were enough. And that's trapping an emotion. That when I say trap an emotion, that means that our bodies create that and we hold on to that, not consciously, but unconsciously, right? So never feeling enough could mean that you're feeling unworthy. Now, that's not necessarily the truth. You are certainly worthy, but that's what your pattern underneath is leading you to believe. How about fear of disappointing people? Are you one of those very special people who says yes to everybody and everything? Well, it could be that you're continuing to repeat that pattern of being afraid to disappoint someone, and perhaps way back in your past, someone made you feel that way. That could be a feeling of rejection, right? or needing approval. That goes hand in hand with fear of disappointing people. Needing approval, needing to know that you have received love. So we can repeat patterns over and over again, doing the same types of things, never getting off that hamster wheel, not consciously, right? It's not your fault. How about difficulty receiving love? Well, you may have felt at some point in your life very vulnerable, or perhaps you were betrayed somehow in a relationship or even a friendship, right? This can go way back. It can even go to even before this, but it can go to the playground. Perhaps you thought you had a really good friend, and then all of a sudden that that supposed friend talked behind your back and made fun of you to other people. That can be a devastating emotion that we've forgotten about that story, right? But we just don't feel like we're worthy of love. And of course, that's not the truth at all. How about fear of being left behind or abandoned? These are things that we may have experienced in our lives because perhaps we have been abandoned somehow in a relationship. Here's a big one, especially if you are a business owner or an entrepreneur, but it could be with anyone. Perfectionism. Do you kind of wear that badge on your chest and say, oh, yeah, I'm a perfectionist? Well, that's fabulous in so many ways because you pride yourself in looking at every single detail and getting everything done. That's not a bad thing at all. But when we are so driven to not feel worthy unless we think we have to be perfect, and I'm going to give you a clue. Nobody's perfect, and we're not meant to be. We're meant to be here to learn and grow, right? But if you are constantly putting on that stress on yourself that you have to be perfect, you may have had an experience in the past where you were humiliated. No matter what you did, no matter what you did, it just wasn't good enough, or it was perceived that it wasn't good enough, right? There's so many reasons why we've repeat patterns. How about, you may know someone like this, always becoming the caretaker, always the one to step up, always the one to take on those responsibilities to take care of others. And here's a little tip. Those of you who do that, make sure that you take care of yourself first. And again, this is not being selfish. But when we give and give and give, it can really get to that point where we feel that burnout. But if you're always becoming the caretaker, perhaps some place in your life you felt helpless or not being able to be in control of a situation, and it really weighed you down. It became very heavy. And so now that's almost this energetic program that you're running on where you feel like you have to take care of everyone and everything. And guess what? No one's capable of doing that. So it's a good time to step back and ask yourself, can I shift things a little? Can I still be compassionate? Can I still care about others, but not always have to take on the responsibility? How about attracting emotionally unavailable partners? Well, perhaps in the past you had an experience where you felt unworthy or the love that you gave wasn't reflected back to you. And so this is unconscious. Unconsciously, perhaps you've attracted unavailable partners. Again, this is not your fault. We're just exploring. We're exploring today. Here's the last one. Constantly overworking. Have you ever called yourself a workaholic, or do you know someone who's a workaholic? Right? We can wear that badge on our chest as well. Remember how we describe ourselves is really not who we are. So constantly overworking. You recognize this emotion of anxiety and nervousness and conflict, and you're just constantly trying to work to resolve that. And this is a pattern that repeats over and over and over again, and it's hard to get off of that wheel of allowing yourself to not have to work at every given moment in your life. So we've covered a lot already. But let's notice that all of these emotional experiences are simply not life circumstances, right? Our brain loves what's familiar. So, our brain's primary job, as you know, is to survive. I mean, without our brain functioning, at some point, we're not surviving. We're not alive. So, what feels familiar to us is always safer than the unfamiliar. I work a lot with those who are in a very challenging relationship, and they meet the same types of energy over and over and over again because the brain is saying, well, I know what this is like, but I don't know what the unknown is like. So even though this is uncomfortable, I'm going to stay in a place where I perceive it's safe. Even painful patterns, they can be predictable, right? We like predictability. We like to know what's going to happen. So knowing what's going to happen often feels safe to our nervous system. So let's look at an example. Someone who grew up needing to earn love may unknowingly continue to seek relationships where love feels conditional. Hmm. Conditional love. What is that? It means that if you act this way, if you do this, if you are this for me, then you'll get my love. And that's a really, really hard place to be in. When we learn to go through a healing process and we understand that love should be given freely and unconditionally, not only do we give our love unconditionally, but we have every right to receive that. There's a word for that. It's called agape love. Unconditional love, no matter what situation you're in, no matter who you are, no matter what you've done, you still should receive unconditional love. You are still loved. There's no condition on that. So someone who grew up needing to earn this love, they don't want this pain, but their nervous system recognizes it. Our nervous system can feel that energy and it recognizes, oh, well, this must be love because I learned that love has conditions. Do you see that? Well, we don't always repeat what's healthy. We often repeat what's familiar. Our emotional memories don't just live in the mind. Very often we forget stories. And then sometimes there are stories that never leave our thoughts. And when those stories appear, and if they're not in our favor, and we repeat them in our heads over and over and over again, you're creating a huge synapse actually in the brain. You're creating what I like to say a superhighway. And that becomes your default, right? That becomes your default in that, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm only going to receive love that's conditional. You may not be saying that, but you're repeating stories about how you were treated in the past. And then we tend to want to say, well, that's who I am. That's a part of me. Not really. So our emotional memories, again, don't live just in the mind. Our body has memory. It stores the emotions and it lives in the subconscious. Our subconscious bodies, our energetic bodies, store and remember everything, even if we don't remember the stories. And when these emotions aren't completely processed, when they're not worked out, and when they're not released, they're just going to stay there. They don't disappear. But what happens is it becomes an underlying program that is not conscious. We don't hear it, we don't see it, we can't taste it, we can't remember it, but it becomes a way in which we interpret our world. It colors our world, if you will. It changes the way we have a perspective on things. It's like an unfinished conversation that your body continues to have. So we don't simply remember emotions, we recreate them. Now, if you've heard of some of these podcasts before, you know that our bodies create the emotions, our organs create the emotions, but we also recreate them because our subconscious is constantly asking, well, what feels familiar? Remember that recognition and we want to repeat it. So that resonance within you, if you had an experience where you felt like no matter what you did to give love, you didn't receive love back, and your body is holding on to that, it's going to say, oh, I recognize this. I'm tuned into this, not consciously, but I'm tuned into this. So then we often repeat patterns. We choose familiar people, or we react in familiar ways, or we interpret situations in a similar way. And we often expect the same outcomes. So, for example, someone who is ignored as a child may be very sensitive when they send a text message to someone and they don't get a text message back right away. That silence, even if it's for a moment or two, is so painful. It's an old resonance memory, not in the thoughts, but in the body, that says, oh, oh, you're not going to get what you need. You're not loved enough. You're not cared for enough, or whatever it is that you went through, right? That delayed text message can be huge for someone. And then they can sit and ruminate and worry about it. And their whole few moments is consumed with this fear that they're not going to get that text message. And then once they do finally get a text message, it could be an hour later, and obviously the other person had something going on and couldn't respond right away. But the person who was sensitive to this was worried for an entire hour, and now they've created more emotions to pile on top of that. An old emotional imprint is still alive and active, and it becomes a trigger for something that's really simple. It shouldn't be a big deal, but it is for that person. Our present moment often awakens unfinished emotions from the past. So awareness, being aware of this is great. We're talking about it, we're thinking about it, we're reflecting on it. Awareness is wonderful. It opens up the doorway to emotional safety and healing. But when we're aware, knowing this isn't the same as going through the steps of releasing it. For example, we may say, I know why I do this, or I understand my childhood. I've done inner child work. Wonderful. That's amazing. Or I've been in therapy, or I've read every book, or I've taken every master class there is out there. That's amazing. You're taking personal responsibility and doing the work. But there's something else that needs acknowledgement. So I'd like to share with you one of the cards from my deck, Untangling the Heart, Emotional Freedom Through Clarity. And this one is awareness. Something wants acknowledgement. An emotion may be asking to be recognized rather than corrected. Awareness itself can be deeply centering. The question is, what emotion might be asking simply to be acknowledged? So let's acknowledge it, but then where can we go from there? So what actually creates change, right? We've recognized it. We see ourselves in these situations. How can we change this? Well, real change happens when, of course, we start with awareness, but we feel emotionally safe. Remember sending a text message and not feeling safe because you didn't get that text, you didn't get a return message right away? What also creates change is having curiosity, but in a way that's compassionate for yourself. It's also being able to release finally that energetic imprint that is within you. It's one thing to say, okay, I'm not going to date these types of people anymore. I'm not going to uh, be in a toxic relationship. Great. That's awareness. But it's another thing where your body keeps drawing you back because we have to release it. And then be able to take that action. So we don't force, we don't fix, we don't judge, we don't bypass. Healing isn't convincing yourself to think differently. Healing is helping your body, my body, our bodies to realize that the danger has passed. And again, it's not by thought. Sometimes an emotional event becomes trapped and the conscious mind moves on. That's where I talked about sometimes we don't remember our stories, but your body doesn't move on. So imagine a tuning fork. Have you ever seen one where you strike the fork and it vibrates and it creates a tone, a tune? And if you pulled another tuning fork and put next to it, it would pick up that same sound and it would start to vibrate as well. Another one with the same frequency will start to vibrate. So our unresolved emotional patterns can work in the same way. There's certain situations, certain personalities, certain environments that can resonate with our emotional frequencies that are already present within us. Remember, we're energetic beings, and people can feel you when you walk in the room. They can feel if you're struggling with something. They can feel if you're very light and airy. And I know you've had same feelings as well about other people. So until this underlying emotional imprint changes, similar to emotional experiences that may continue to feel very familiar, notice that the emphasis isn't on blame. There's nothing for you to blame yourself about. It's about vibrating and being in the same resonance. You know, this release doesn't magically eliminate problems. It releases how we meet them. It changes how we feel and see about them. So, for example, if in the past you've thought of yourself as always attracting controlling people, well, once you've recognized this resonance and you've been able to release it, now you might say, I notice controlling behavior sooner. And then you get to make the choice if you want to be in that relationship or not. But before your body resonated with it and it was in a way, you just vibed with it, right? But you couldn't step back and ask yourself, is this something that I want to partake in? Maybe now you can say, I establish boundaries, or I choose differently, or I choose not to stay in this relationship. Your internal response, your internal resonance has changed. So now you can see the world in a different light. It's amazing. So I'd like to share one more card with you today. This is called the integration. And you know, healing isn't always dramatic. Often it's very subtle and it can reveal itself in a very quiet and consistent way. So ask yourself, what emotion seems to be revisiting my life? And let's look at the card. Something has shifted. I'll show this to you. Something has shifted. Even subtle changes count. Integration often happens quietly. Small inner shifts can signal real change. So sometimes, again, they're so subtle. Someone might invite you to a gathering that you've been to many, many, many times. And all of a sudden, since you've released and your body feels safer, you can step back and say, you know what? Maybe you've said, I've kind of outgrown that. Well, what you've really done is released the resonance that makes you feel like you have to repeat that pattern. Does that make sense? The reflection is what feels different within me. And it's a really wonderful thing to honor the shifts that are unfolding within you. So let's go back again and reflect. Ask yourself, what emotion seems to revisit my life again and again and again? What lesson might my heart still be inviting me to understand? What would become possible if I no longer carried that emotional weight? Take a moment and think about that. What would become possible? You are filled with possibilities. You are an incredible creation and have so much more to create. And when you're able to release the heavy weight of the emotions that you've been carrying for a very long time, you will be able to continue to blossom in this lifetime. If today's conversation resonated with you, please know this. Repeating a pattern doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean that the healing isn't working. Don't trap that emotion of frustration on top of everything else. It may simply mean that there's still another layer asking to be seen, but seen in compassion. Healing isn't about becoming someone different. It's really about a gentle release, releasing something that really wasn't yours to carry forever, perhaps for just a little while, because it helped you to grow. It helped you to be in situations and circumstances that you learned from. But as those emotional imprints are released, new choices become available for you. New relationships become possible for you. And slowly, life begins responding to a different version of you. You stop the old patterns and you're creating a new life, one quiet step at a time. If you're curious about emotional patterns that may be quietly influencing your life, I'm always honored to explore them with you. And if this conversation touched your heart today, just know you're not alone in this, and nothing about your experience is random. If one person came to mind today while you were listening, please feel free to share this conversation with them. You can find Untangling the Heart on YouTube, LinkedIn, and wherever you enjoy podcasts. Please be sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss a conversation. And thank you for being here today. Until next time, from my heart to yours.
We've all got stories we don't say out loud, little knots we hide away. You're not broken, you're just learning to be honest with what you feel today. This is untangling the heart, one brave breath, one time.